living in the now with Jules Verne. So we're going to have Werner talk about things that he's experienced throughout this year and things he's experienced throughout his years. And on turning 72, Werner may have quiets of knowledge that you might want to hear. Thanks.
When I was much younger, I had dreams, and this comes about because I've been reading some people, particularly Michael St. Clair, Sen of Stars. I've been reading, and Julia's been reading it with me. In fact, we've been reading it to each other. And there was a certain interest in exploring the Zen idea. I think in German they call it Zen. Or I tried to talk to my sister or to my son in Germany about it. And anyway, to go back, so when I first was introduced to the knowledge of Zen, it came in the 60s when I was a young engineer in Boston, and computers and electronic communication was sort of introduced into our society. I was introduced to this awareness and also the use of language to express these Eastern ideas that were expressed in Zen, also in Buddhism or in Hinduism. So at that time, when this information came to me, we started to get militarized in a certain way that I became aware of when the future of architecture didn't really go the way I expected it to be going, and I was willing to participate. It shifted into warfaring as the principle of how cities have to be organized. And so I, after reading a lot of Alan Watts and a lot of Buckminster Fuller in those days, decided to leave this profession and actually dedicate myself to exploring video. I didn't really have any film background or any artistic background in that sense. I had vivid dreams when I was a kid in Germany, and I didn't have them later on anymore, but I think they kind of brought me to America. And reading now of other people that have put their life experience into book form, they usually also talk about how they get from the kind of young human that they were to what they now have to say that they're older or more adult. So in that sense, Sen of Stars, which I mentioned earlier, was quite a surprise for me, because I had originally, when I left engineering and not worked with computer anymore for designing buildings for the fantasies of architects that could sell them, I thought maybe there was a way of going deeper into this visual tool, which television and video cameras allowed to have. They were fascinating because you could record and simultaneously or right after replay sound and picture. You couldn't do anything like this in a movie. It was a whole different medium, and I was very intrigued by it. I had, when I was younger, studied classical guitar, and I was always fascinated by sound, and I could get really lost in sound. And so after having been introduced, this is before video, to being part of light shows that some folks in Boston were doing, it really intrigued my fantasy to explore visually. So having a video camera was a big tool. There were no real teachers, so to speak. I felt like I could come up with whatever my mind would come up with, and I would sort of trust it. That was part of how I learned and read about Zen already in those days. I somehow didn't trust the Western mindset. I really felt like I had to revolt against it. It seemed like it was leading to nothing else but continuous warfare, and there was something wrong about that, and I had to explore it. Many years, decades now of having gone in video through first reel-to-reel tape, and then half-inch cassette, and then high 8 format, and then mini DV format, which we're recording on now. Now in the meantime, people have cameras that have hard drives, they don't need tape anymore. So, but that's just a side issue almost. The more important issue is the fact that, as Buckminster Fuller forecast once, when the technology of video and computers, which, like I said earlier, when I was an engineer, we used to design buildings rather than slide rule in the old-fashioned way. They were now designed by younger people that didn't understand the old building code anymore, and the people that hired them would have to trust that these people really knew what they were doing. So I saw all that, and it gave me more the sense I had to get out from there and to go on my own. And listening to Alan Watts just a little while ago, he explained, how you swim without a head, which actually says this to me. Normally when we talk about swimming, there's a certain idea that we have about what that looks like. There's the head and you swim head first. The head gives you the direction that you're going. But in reality, as our body and our eyes and our brain somehow just translate all that there is out there, we're used to filtering out a certain amount only, and only the filtered out amount is what we're living with, and it's conditioning us. And so the trick of overcoming this mental conditioning is kind of a tricky one. Now, fortunately, some people that were born, let's say 30 years after I was born, they now grew up with a whole different kind of conditioning that I grew up with, except their imagination and their vision seems to be the same that I have. That's what I'm getting lately. I'm all of a sudden realizing, this kind of totally trusting the universe and the cosmos, and just totally giving yourself over to it, and not seemingly not having any goal. I used to be called, they were always dreamers, Werner, you're just a dreamer. Well, I wasn't in those days. When I shifted to video, I didn't think I was dreaming anymore, but if I was called a dreamer, that was a good thing, as I'm finding out now. Because that's the only way how you really can control your future, and you can control your health that way, and you can control the attitude you have about anything that way. And what I find extremely interesting now is that, like I said, people that were born 30 years after I was born, I'm born 1936, these people have, they're producing fabulous books now, and going back to the electronic communication again, and as Fuller said, when video and computers are merging, I spend a lot of time on the computer being online on the internet. So the internet now allows people that want to share visual information to broadcast it. And anyone that develops a sense on what keywords to type in, or how to actually search for these things, and it's so easy now. I mean, you can go on Google, everyone knows Google. People that know how to do email in the meantime have learned how to Google. And you type in any kind of word, not word, but a subject that you're interested in, or a name of someone, and search not on the web, but search in video, Google. You will find someone that actually has made a video about what you're interested in. And then by looking at these videos, it links you to someone else who does something similar, and that way you can swim around and float around and discover information that is very important. And just to know that there are so many people out there doing this gives me, and me observing it, because I ended up being labeled with this label Videosphere,